Mr. President, the Russian Federation has abstained from voting on the Bahrain resolution because it has an extremely unbalanced nature and does not meet the goals of international peace and security. I would like to make it clear right away that we understand and regret the situation in which the Middle East countries are today. Moreover, Russia considers the strikes on the territory unacceptable, and especially on the civil infrastructure facilities of the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. The leadership of our country, and personally President Putin, have joined efforts to de-escalate and stop the bloodshed, both in Iran and around it since the first days. However, it is impossible and unfair to talk about the attacks on the countries of the region in the absence of the first reasons for the current escalation, namely the aggression of the United States and Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran. To my deep regret, the resolution adopted just now has been sustained in such a biased and one-sided way. The reasons for the investigation are mixed up in it. If a person who does not follow it in international affairs reads it, he will inevitably have the impression that Tehran, by its own will and malicious intent, has committed an attack on the Arab countries without any provocation. The attacks on the territory of Iran itself, not to mention those who are behind them and carry them out, are not discussed in the document. They are simply bypassed. The Security Council has just signed on to it. It should be noted that the authorities in Tehran have repeatedly emphasized that their countermeasures are aimed not against the countries of the region, but against the American military facilities and infrastructure located on their territory. They are the legal targets within the framework of the right of Iran to self-defense in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. It should be noted that Washington has simply set up the state of the Gulf with its aggressive actions. The Americans have repeatedly ignored their requests not to use the territory of the Arab countries for military operations against Iran. According to the information from the open sources, the United States is actively using the permanent bases of its armed forces, primarily in the monarchies of the Persian Gulf, not for defense or intelligence purposes, but for offensive purposes. On the official website of the American Central Command on February 28th, with a link to its head Brad Cooper, it was reported that high-precision weapons were launched not only from water and air, but also from land. It is obvious that it could only be about the territory of neighboring countries with Iran. It is not a secret that the American base in Bahrain is the headquarters and brain center of the 5th U.S. Navy, which is the main strike force against Iran. The U.S. Air Force Base in Saudi Arabia is the main point of technical service of the American aviation in the region. The largest Uludaib Air Force Base located in Qatar can be used not only as the most important element of the global air defense system of the United States and NATO, but also for the deployment of strike fighters, bombers, and refuelers, as well as for the suppression of air defense and targeting. The Al Dhafra base in the United Arab Emirates is also suitable for the same purposes and for the collection of intelligence information. The U.S. base in Kuwait, Jordan, and Iraq also plays a significant role in carrying out military operations against Iran. All this is used by Iran to justify its strikes on American military facilities in Arab countries. The unconditional imperative for the protection of civilians and infrastructure in the current conflict is also adopted by the United Arab Emirates. Strikes on civilians and facilities are not permissible under any circumstances and not in any country, not in Armenia, not in Iran, not in Bahrain, not in Jordan, not in Qatar, not in Kuwait, not in Oman, not in Saudi Arabia, not in the poor Arab Emirates, not in Israel. However, from the project of the U.S. Air Force Base, it can be concluded that no one strikes on the civilians of Iran. It is as if no one strikes. It is as if there was no monstrous strike on the school for girls in Manabi, as a result of which almost 200 children died. It is as if there was no cynical murder of the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. It is as if there were no strikes on the facilities of the peaceful nuclear and oil infrastructure, which threatened to have catastrophic consequences, and not only economic consequences for the residents of not only Iran and neighboring countries, but also the states outside the Middle East. The authors of the project simply suggest that we close our eyes to these illegal actions and the unprovoked aggression against Iran by the United States and Israel. From the very beginning of the work on the text, the Russian Federation, along with Chinese colleagues, consistently brought these concerns to the Arab states. We voiced them in the course of informal consultations, as well as provided the authors and all other members of the Council with our written comments and proposals. In particular, we propose the following to the authors. Firstly, to call on all sides of the current conflict to cease strikes. Secondly, to condemn strikes not only on the Gulf countries but also on the territory of Iran, as well as to express regret over the attacks on civilian facilities, which led to the death of civilians, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the solidarity with the people of Iran in this difficult time. Thirdly, to demand from all states the rejection of provocations and any actions that could lead to further unwinding of the spiral of escalation. Additionally, to confirm the need to regulate any disputes by peaceful means and to provide a balanced indication that the right to self-defense in accordance with the UN Charter is not only in the hands of the Arab states but also in the hands of Iran. At the same time, despite the principal position of our country, in particular, the categorical condemnation of the aggressive actions of the United States and Israel, we tried to uphold our rights in an extremely restrained manner, without calling the initiators of the current crisis by name. When working on the document, we guided it with only one concept: objectivity. However, the authors of the draft resolution simply ignored the position of Russia and China. Our greatest disappointment is the refusal to include in the text of the draft resolution the policy of diplomatic settlement of the conflict. Moreover, this was done without an appeal and without any explanations, as if we were speaking in vain. We consider such an approach to work on the products of the UN Security Council to be unconstructive, irresponsible, unacceptable, and unsuitable for a responsible member of the Council. Mr. Chairman, the adoption of such a resolution will not lead to peace in the Middle East. It will only aggravate the disagreements between the key players in the region. We are afraid that the countries of the USSR and the CPSU, in pursuit of condemnation of Iran, will be able to overshadow all the achievements of the past in restoring friendly relations with Tehran, as well as for many years to overcome the prospects of the formation of a common security space for all the countries of the region. Moreover, a positive resolution of the Council on this document can be interpreted by dishonest players and, above all, by those who started this war, as a blessing for the continuation of aggressive actions against Iran. We urge all members of the UN to realize this. Thank you. Mr. President, we have already noted today the unconstructive nature of the just-approved resolution condemning Iran's strikes on the territory of the country of the region, which was held in a one-sided key, and the additional clarification of the representative of Bahrain does not convince us otherwise. The Russian Federation is now calling on the members of the Security Council to adopt an unbiased document aimed at an urgent de-escalation of the situation. This will allow the Council to perform its direct duties to maintain international peace and security. The project prepared by our country leaves behind brackets the contradictions between the members of the Council on the issues of the current unprecedented tensions in the Middle East. It is straightforward, simple, and non-bipartisan, and contains 4 points of resolution. The first point is to call on all parties to immediately cease hostilities and refrain from taking any steps that could lead to further escalation in the region and beyond. The second point is a categorical condemnation of any strikes on civilians and civil objects, and to draw attention to the obligations of the parties in accordance with international law, including international humanitarian law. The third point is to point out the importance of ensuring the security of all without exception, the states of the region. The fourth point is a strong call on all parties to immediately return to the negotiating table. We are convinced that the mentioned elements fully reflect the opinions of the members of the Security Council in connection with the current events, including those voiced during the meeting of the Council on February 28th. At the same time, during the preparation of the project, we did not deliberately mention any of the parties. We are well aware that such an approach would make it impossible to reach a consensus, and as a result, would interfere with the Council's immediate direction of a fundamentally important signal of the need for immediate de-escalation and restraint of all conflicting parties. During the work on the project, the Russian Federation distributed a document under the written comments of the members of the Council and held in-person informal consultations. We note that none of the delegations voiced any objections or concerns about the text itself. In this context, we hope that all colleagues will demonstrate their responsibility and support the Russian project, which may become a timely and extremely necessary step for the policy of diplomatic settlement of the situation in the Middle East. Thank you. Mr. President, I am deeply disappointed that the Security Council failed to adopt such an urgent resolution focused on the need for de-escalation in the Middle East and the return to the search for negotiable solutions. I would like to express my gratitude to the colleagues who supported the adoption of the proposed document in Russia. We believe that they acted responsibly and principally, just as the members of the Security Council should. Alas, some of the colleagues did not find the strength and wisdom to adopt a single correct resolution, while a number of them did so purposefully. After all, the most important thing for them is to follow in the footsteps of their elder brother and listen to his entire team. They have just rejected the possibility to send a non-bipartisan demand to the Security Council for the immediate cessation of hostilities and the settlement of any disputes by peaceful means. This, once again, clearly shows that all the loud statements of these countries about the obedience to the international law, the UN Charter and peace, are nothing more than empty words. Their position is determined by purely conventional political interests and bloc solidarity, as well as by the fear of falling out of favor with their senior comrades. Moreover, these considerations are not ready to undermine the authority of the Security Council. It is quite evident that none of the delegations that opposed or abstained from the resolution was able to explain what exactly displeased them with the text that we have prepared for them. The duty statements on the importance of focusing on the resolution proposed by Bahrain and the ECCC countries do not withstand any criticism. The Russian project did not contradict the document of the ECC countries in any way and did not contain any mutually excluding elements in relation to it. Therefore, such words are nothing more than a ridiculous attempt to justify themselves for the fear of supporting the initiative, no matter how heavily weighted and depoliticized it may be, and only because it is not beneficial to the true instigators of bloody events in the Middle East. It is even more dangerous if other geopolitical goals are hidden behind their resolution. The responsibility for any negative consequences on the ground, which may result in the lack of conscientiousness and irresponsibility of some members of the Council, lies entirely and completely on them. This is a vote on a paper made of varnish. I am sorry for the expression, but this is an invitation to show your true colors. We are curious whether the countries that did not support this resolution do not understand how pitiful they look. We have already said that these are not even double standards. This is surrealism, mirage, and theater of absurdity. This is a disgrace. We will now constantly remind you of this, when in other situations you will betray yourselves for the supporters of international law. Regardless of the outcome of today's vote, Russia will continue to make every possible effort to stop the confrontation in the Middle East and to regulate any contradictions with peaceful means. We will help the countries of the region and other parties to the conflict in every possible way. We expect a similar approach from the right-thinking and constructive members of the state.